here it goes. So you see it up on the hydrofoils out of that difficult sea state that makes rides difficult. Now coming up on its right flank is our Sea Cheetah platform. That's going to be our wing and ground craft. You can hear that nice quiet engine. So we're looking at a very smooth ride, operating above the taking off and landing on the water. And so really reducing that bumpiness and that difficulty in travel, looking at traveling about 150 knots with a range of 440, 500 knots. So some really good range there.
Half a day, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam podcast where we look at all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, IG, and Substack. My podcasts drop at the beginning of each week. Also, look for my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News, first and third Fridays of each month. All right, my guest today is an incredible thought leader and technologist shaping the future of sustainable maritime transportation. Here's a quick snapshot of his background. He is the Global Director of Logistics and Government Solutions at Sea Cheetah Corporation, the first vertically integrated hydrogen maritime mobility company. He has an extensive experience in logistics, government relations, and international operations with a track record of enabling innovative, scalable maritime solutions. He previously served as Chief Operating Officer for multiple logistics and energy ventures, helping to drive transformational programs across both the private and public sectors. He has a BA degree in business administration from Norwich University and a master's degree in national security affairs with a concentration in Middle East and North African affairs from the Naval Postgraduate School. He is a passionate advocate for hydrogen-based transportation and sustainable infrastructure. He is also a champion for improving connectivity and economic opportunity in coastal and island nations, including right here in Micronesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Greg Lewis.
Hey,
Greg, how are you doing, man?
fantastic, Rob, and half a day. Thank you for inviting me on the show. It's a privilege to be here where I know you're where America's day begins, and I've had glad to have had the opportunity to visit Guam on two separate occasions, and I love it there, and glad to be on your show. Thank you.
Well, we're excited to have you. We're looking forward for you to tell us all about this great technology that you're trying to bring to market. So we have a tradition here. We kind of start off with some icebreaker questions to kind of see where your head is at in terms of innovation. So let's start. What is your definition of innovation, and what does innovation mean to you?
Oh, great question. I see innovation is trying to is seeing that there's a problem that's out there that needs to be solved, and then coming up with a solution for it. It may even involve identifying new problems that we haven't even thought about and figuring out a way to make it right, how to get around a challenge that is out there for humanity. Particularly in my background with like defense and national security, looking for solutions that help us get to resolve problems. And there's a wide range of things: energy, advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, some of these new tools that are out there that will hopefully allow us to innovate. But it is very much a mentality, because we know that we have to exist with what we have, the budgets that we have, the equipment that we have. And so there's also what I would call improvise. I'm a retired Marine Corps guy, and so we always talk about improvise, adapt, and overcome. And I would say improvisation is sort of, innovating under fire, where you just have to work with what you got. Innovation, I see, as something where you can actually build a new solution and bring it. So that's what we're hoping to do with Sea Cheetah. right? Because looking at the current equipment sets and so forth, they're not. I don't think they're exactly what we need for the current challenges that we have. So we need to innovate. We need to make something new.
Absolutely. So what is your favorite innovation or piece of technology, past or present?
Oh, so many of them. It's funny because last week was National Chocolate and Peanut Butter Day, and I kind of did a post about how innovation, the commercial. I'm dating myself because I think it was the '80s. The two great tastes that taste great together, and it said, and they showed like Noah's Ark, and these guys are saying, "Man, your chocolate tastes this peanut butter tastes good in the chocolate, and the chocolate tastes good in the peanut butter." And of course, then the Noah's Ark things happen, and so and then the tagline is the world would have to wait for the two great tastes that taste great together. So I think the Reese's peanut butter cup is great. So I think it was 1928 when it was finally scaled into the Reese's peanut butter cup and something that went to market. So I like those. And obviously I do love seaplanes. Back to the PBY Catalina float planes, the Pan Am Clippers, and so forth. That's a really Spruce Goose, some really neat innovation. So I'm happy to be in that business. The 21st century version of that. Over.
Yeah, that's awesome, especially with our connection to that history here in Guam with the Clippers. Yeah. So who is your favorite innovator of all time and why?
Wow. I don't know. It's probably a terrible thing, but maybe and I can't think of a favorite innovator off the top of my head. I've got I think of Thomas Edison, coming up with energy, but figuring it out how to make that light bulb, how to scale it. Brought his technology out of the lab, if you will. And I know he's kind of a controversial figure in a lot of ways, but I think he's a great one. Ben Franklin, getting out and playing in a lot of different fields, but really coming up with
Yes,
solutions that helped resolve things for a lot of, the Farmer's Almanac, way ahead of his time.
yes,
And then obviously getting into the political sphere and helping innovate government, right? Like our new form, the American form of government was an innovation on how to do government. So that was exciting. Him being a part of both the science side and also also the government and politics side.
well,
They
outstanding.
just went ahead with two of them.
Innovation leaders, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson here. Are you ready to elevate your vehicle fleet operations? Fleet Solutions is an AI-enabled fleet management system. Fleet Solutions provides real-time video, smart analytics, and total efficiency. Keep your people safe and keep your business moving forward faster than ever before. Fleet Solutions, arriving tomorrow, today. Visit thefleetsolutions.net or call 671-988-9748 to schedule your personalized demo and revolutionize your fleet operations today. Okay, Greg. So before we get into the meat of our conversation, I want to give you the floor to share, a short presentation to help paint a picture for our listeners what the Sea Cheetah ecosystem looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and turn over the floor to you to kind of walk us through what Sea Cheetah is all about.
Okay, so here is who we are at Sea Cheetah. We're a vertically integrated zero emission hydrogen mobility and power turnkey solution. So what that means is we really want to provide a holistic maritime mobility solution and the energy that powers it. So if you think of Tesla, which has they make cars, but they also make charging infrastructure, right? So we're looking to make both the platforms, and we'll get into those, and then we're also looking to make the hydrogen infrastructure that will provide the fuel source for those platforms. And we look to be a turnkey solution. We can either sell those platforms to the owners, or we have a leasing option that's available, and we'll get into those in the future. But we're looking really at sustainable mobility, hydrogen electric maritime vessels, a wide range of them, and then 100% hydrogen self-produced in situ on location, on demand. We're looking to cut transportation costs. We're looking to reduce travel time, and that's both the actual time driving, but also the time waiting to go through security checkpoints and so forth, and also reducing maintenance costs. So here's some of the challenges, and you in Guam and the Marianas, Micronesia, obviously are aware of these. I have taken a trip to the Marianas, and it took a long time. I've actually flew, the last time I came to Guam was during COVID, from the East Coast, and so I flew in a mask. I flew through Hawaii, and I wasn't able to eat anyway. But it took a long time to get there, which is understandable. Wonderful flight though. But we're really looking at the coastal market, not so much international travel, although we certainly can look at that as the power plants and so forth develop. But we're so looking at coastal travel. So think about going from Guam to Saipan or Tinian. There's flight options, but then you have to go to the airport. You have to get on a plane. You have to land, take off, and so forth. So what if we could just go back and forth? I know there's one ferry there. I live in Virginia Beach. So right now, currently, it takes me about 3.5, 4 hours, depending on how I-95 is, to drive up from Virginia Beach, Norfolk area to Washington, D.C. On that road. The train takes about 4 hours. And there's a lot of variables in that, right? Accidents, snow.
Right.
I know you don't have to worry about snow there in the Marianas, but the rest of the rest of us do here. So there's all kinds of things, right? And then there's infrastructure, right? The rail, the rail here, we have to share rail with the freight lines, the Amtrak and so forth. And then the roads, if you're driving on a bus or your car. And those, you've got the foibles of traffic accidents and so forth. So what we're looking at is really reducing that, getting out onto using the rivers, bays and oceans as sort of our runway, our rail, our roads, which there's an abundance of that. Obviously, there's different rule sets. There are things, boats do crash, so there are obstacles that we have to think about as we traverse those commons. But we think there's just great potential there, reduced infrastructure requirements, and so forth. So sea state, it can be limiting for boats. Once those waves get too bumpy, you've got a bumpy ride, you got sick passengers, and also I work with a lot of Navy veterans. They get, but people get traumatic brain injuries from bumping up and down on these waves all the time, and so it can be really rough unless you have really nice smooth waves. It's going to be a challenge, and then aviation is expensive. You've got crew rest and things like that, things that we'd obviously have to work with our pilots as well. We're going to start introducing you to our platform. So on the screen right now, you'll see our hydrofoil. So we have several different platforms, and we'll get to that later. But pictured right here is our hydrofoil, which is a hydrogen fuel celled hydrofoil. These are currently in use in America's Cup as chase vehicles. So they follow the America's Cup racing teams around. And America's Cup, I think it's significant that they have blessed off on hydrogen fuel cells as an approved platform for the maintenance for the America's Cup. So they're not really commercialized yet. So we are looking to commercialize those. So here it goes. So you see it up on the hydrofoils out of that difficult sea state that makes rides difficult. Now coming up on its right flank is our Sea Cheetah platform. That's going to be our wing and ground craft. You can hear that nice quiet engine. So we're looking at a very smooth ride, operating above taking off and landing on the water. And so really reducing that bumpiness and that difficulty in travel, looking at traveling about 150 knots. With a range of 440, 500 knots. So some really good range there. And then I'll push on to our next slide. So here's the different platforms that we had in the picture earlier, showing the fueling time. Really, really quick, 15. So imagine kind of like, about 5 minutes to fill up your car. So we're looking at about 15 minutes to put hydrogen in at one of our hydrogen hubs. So if you can imagine, if you're going from point to point at different hydrogen hubs, you'd be able to make that trip up the East Coast or from island to island and then refuel at those different points. So that's the
Outstanding.
Sea Cheetah, and then the Sea Biscuit there has a range of about 250 kilometers. So you can imagine going, back and forth between the islands, Tinian, Saipan, Guam, back and forth, just making routine visits. The cruise side, we're looking at one operator. Depending on the construct, we would probably have a crew that takes care of the passengers and so forth. And we're looking at a couple different variations of this. One would be your general passenger. Then we have some VIP options for VIP transportation, and also transportation of goods. So I'm a logistics guy. So obviously I'm interested in the trade aspects and moving cargo back and forth. Similar, we would do at air cargo, where you've got UPS, FedEx, and so forth that move cargo by air. We'd be looking at those markets for moving cargo that needs to move quickly. So that Sea Cheetah, that wing and ground, we're looking at that at being able to carry 20 packs. And again, we can have different layouts for that. And then for the Sea Biscuit, our hydrofoil, we'd be looking at having 12 passengers. There's the cruising speeds, 250 kilometers an hour for the Sea Cheetah, and then 75 kilometers an hour for the Biscuit. You see the payload sizes there, and then kind of the interior dimensions. So very comfortable, a lot of space to stand up, walk around during flight. As I mentioned, so working from the left, so we've got our flagship, which is that wing and ground craft. That we have a prototype currently. We'll be testing that soon. We're looking for that being able to come to market in the 2027 timeframe, when we have the right mix of customers and so forth. But we're looking forward to that testing here soon, and we'll be glad to share that with you as that is announced. The hydrogen hub infrastructure, that's where we're making the hydrogen on location. That is something that we can deliver within a half year, within a year, depending on the contract. If there was a demand for hydrogen right now, even without the craft themselves, we could bring that and set that up. So, and that's going to be hydrogen. We can also that's also going to be producing fresh water, because part of the process of making the hydrogen is desalinating the water, and then electricity. So you'd be able to charge electric platforms off of that as well, whether those be maritime platforms or platforms that are shore. So you can imagine this being next to a dock or so forth, and there being golf carts and things like that need to jump on.
Yeah, that's a great byproduct of the energy producing process, that you create water.
Yeah. It's exciting, and we can draw the power that runs that electrolysis from a variety of energy sources, right? Like we could have a solar array, it could be wind, it could be a small modular reactor, it could be deep well geothermal. That is the genesis of starting that process, and that makes that hydrogen on location, or wave energy, right? There's any number of sources that can get, renewable energy sources that are used to start that process. And then to the top right there is the Sea Biscuit. So we're looking at quarter of 2026. Again, those are already being used in America's Cup. So they're here and now. That's something you can order, and then we can build it, and it'd be available fairly, within a year. And down at the bottom, the wing and ground, we're looking at quarter two of 2027 when those would be available. All right, so here is a side-by-side, because why hydrogen? Right, to people, there is I've been a big fan of hydrogen for probably about 5-6 years now. Again, my background, defense. I did a tour in Afghanistan where the entire everything in Afghanistan was fossil fuel. So we needed to bring in all that fossil fuel from around the globe. Basically, we were not making our own energy, and there's risk with that. So our guys would have to do convoys to move fuel around, which puts targets on their back. I was there when a convoy was destroyed. Actually, not one of our Marine Corps convoys, but one of our contracted convoys, and the Taliban blew up all this fuel and other things. And so that's going to be a risk for our forces. So General Mattis, used to be Secretary of Defense Mattis, talked about the fossil fuel tether. And the parallel to from Afghanistan, which is the land of sand, is to the Marianas, which is surrounded by water, is that you're very
Correct.
fuel. The Caribbean, similar thing, right? 99% fossil fuel, I want to say, and a lot of these island nations, that fuel has to come in, and so you're dependent on somebody else to bring you the fuel, and that cost variable goes up and down, usually up, not really down. And so we want to give that independence, that energy independence, or dominating energy, if you will, as the new coin of the realm, to the folks that buy this. You'll essentially be able to buy your own gas station, buy or lease. You'll be making your own fuel, hydrogen, on location, which is really exciting.
Yes.
So here's a comparison. So hydrogen, again, the quick refuel time that we talked about, the range, the fuel cells are fantastic. That we're looking at a hydrogen electric engine, which will the maintenance goes down on that as compared to like internal combustion engines, diesel engines, and so forth. Just if you look at the Teslas, right, they're electric drive, just very efficient platforms. But batteries do not work well with salt water or seawater, water in general.
Yes.
We've seen these ships that have, caught fire with well, one of the EVs will catch fire and the whole ship goes down. And so we see that as one of the challenges with EV. The challenge with fossil fuel, we're aware of. It's expensive. Battery performance degrades over time. You still got that carbon footprint, right? Where those batteries coming from. And I know battery technology is improving and so forth, and that's all very exciting. But hydrogen's here. It's available. We're looking to be able to operate in a higher sea state, being able to take off and land in a sea state of 4, which makes a big difference for, as compared to being able to take off in 2 to 3 feet of water, and also being able to land in the case of, in the event of an emergency, right, or some sort of storm that we weren't anticipating, and being able to react quickly and to move away from it. And then, of course, that infrastructure, right? If you have an EV platform, you're still going to need that shore power to charge it, and the ranges are not the same as what you would get out of hydrogen. So you're still going to need to find a place to plug in, right, and recharge that. And so we can recharge EV platforms, as I mentioned, from our hydrogen hub, as we'll be doing electricity as well. So here's a side by side of our wing and ground, our Sea Cheetah that we're looking at. So
Oh, look at that. Such a modern design.
it's beautiful, yeah, and Serge will talk to that. Just a beautiful platform, very comfortable, state of the art, slick. Those engines are going to be the downtime will be minimal. I'm also thinking about the MRO MRO requirements for this, right? That the time it takes for your platform to be off the grid getting repaired, with hydrogen electric, it's just really going to reduce that maintenance time. So you'll have much more uptime on your platform. And the other great thing is you're going to be looking at, instead of aircraft certification, it's a maritime certification. It's considered a boat that flies. And so that training pipeline is going to be significantly less than what it would take to be an aircraft pilot, because you're flying over the water, you're not flying over people and homes and so forth, and the risks that come along with that. And you're not going up to that altitude, which is also a scary factor. So
Understood.
so here's side by side with our hydrofoil with a hydrofoil electric ferry, right? Similar comparison to the wing and ground. The refueling time is much quicker than the recharging time. Again, battery performance degrades. The range is not as long, and you still have to have that shore power that you've got to plug into. And we're also, the hydrofoil is going to allow us to operate in a higher sea state, which is great. So imagine going back from, again, Guam type, Tinian, Saipan, and just having some round robin water taxi routes, essentially.
Right.
At great speeds. Now this is what we're looking at for our operations center, right? Managing that distribution network, tracking, what wing and ground platforms, managing what's the status of the maintenance on those platforms and so forth. So this hub would be something that you'd set up in on the coast, and you'd staff it with folks from the, which would means jobs. Like as you mentioned earlier, I'm really interested in economic development, workforce development. So you look at the folks manning this, folks managing distribution networks, whether they're moving people or things, that being involved with that, the operators, the drivers themselves, the folks that maintain it, that jobs there. So a lot of really great opportunities that come along with that. And there's just going to be making sure that the communications are savvy. Obviously, watching the weather, being aware of the weather, the air weather, the tidal things that are out in the water, sea state and so forth, so that we can vector our craft safely, find alternate routes and so forth. So, and that'll
Yeah,
be
21st Century Operations Center for Transportation Operations. Yep, Maritime
correct. Tied
Transportation.
into NOAA, all the buoys, getting good readings, and just really having a nice solid picture of that whole distribution transportation network, and being able to, radar, being able to tap into all of that. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um, yeah, we've talked a bit about hydrogen. So one of the things that the conundrum that you'll hear about with folks that are critical of hydrogen is the chicken and the egg dilemma, right? And that's the idea that why would I build a hydrogen platform if there's no hydrogen supply chain to fill my platform up? And then the flip side is, why
yeah,
would I build a hydrogen supply chain if there's nothing that's going to consume it? And so you've seen
right.
different folks, hydrogen aviation, and then hydrogen production companies, and it's a little bit boom and bust. So Sea Cheetah is sitting right in the middle of both of those and saying, we're going to get the chicken and the egg. We're going to make the platforms, and we're going to make the hydrogen infrastructure ourselves. And that is what we're going to provide to our customers, a turnkey solution that resolves this chicken and the egg dilemma. So so when you
It's a good approach.
Mhm. Yeah, and so if you're buying or leasing from us, you're buying a whole solution. You're buying your own gas station, and you're buying the vehicles that would consume it. Um,
Yeah,
so this is a really cool video. It gives you a picture of what kind of the whole Sea Cheetah world, as we call it. So that's our hydrogen hub, and there are these LED, that is actually a product that's out there where you can have the LED putting some branding out there. So that's our hydrogen hub, and then you saw the other platforms there. I'll just go. This is um, our Sea Cheetah lounge. So the wing and ground craft is going to be about 80 feet wide. So that can't necessarily come into small harbors. So what we'd have is we'd have a dock that's offshore, and then we would look at the lounge as our connector, or the biscuit as our last connector, as our connector that brings people into a marina, or a dock or a beach somewhere to bring people in.
understood, understood. Yeah.
And I think you've already seen that, so we'll push on to the next slide. Here's that picture in the aggregate, right? So there's a number of hydrogen powered vessels that are out there. We are not going to be making those super yachts that you see in the background, but there are some
Yeah, my eyes went directly to the
yeah,
super yacht.
that's a beautiful yeah. And they've got a helicopter pad. I mean, if we don't
Yes,
really we don't need a helicopter, because you're going to have your Sea Cheetah, and you can go around, and we're going to be much cheaper than using a helicopter to traverse around the islands. And then and we don't have the forklifts. There are a number, or the golf carts. There are a number of companies that are making hydrogen powered forklifts, hydrogen powered golf carts. There's even a company that makes hydrogen powered bicycles. And I live in Virginia Beach. I've seen the electric bikes and so forth, which are pretty cool. They've obviously got to find their place to charge into, and you see the scooters probably
a
sitting
place
around, right?
like yeah, like a place like Guam, Micronesia. Um, there's a value add component to converting your forklift fleets over to hydrogen power, so that
Mhm.
you're not having the same kind of demand on the gas, or even I think there's probably a better value add for some of the electrics that are out there as well.
Yeah, and we're seeing that here in Virginia. There's Walmart is using hydrogen forklifts in some of their warehouses, or I want to say all of their warehouses. So that's pretty exciting. If you're able to make your own hydrogen, then it's not a drain on your energy, your energy bill. You're not having to get gas for in the gas that you would need um, to run your fleet. My dad used to have a warehouse in New Jersey, right? It was all gas powered forklifts and so forth. So I just think so we would look at those as off takers. So that would be another revenue stream, is these off takers, right? The golf carts. So you can imagine,
Yes.
like Catalina Island off of California, that's entirely a golf cart community. In the Outer
Right.
Banks, Ocracoke. So if you have just, a low speed limit, like 30 miles an hour, and everybody cruises around in golf carts, that's great. Now you've got a whole self-sustained, ecosystem that's based on hydrogen. Right. And hydrogen, if you spill hydrogen, it's not, not the same as spilling fossil fuels, right? You're not going to pollute
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
environment. If you dropped a lithium battery in a coral reef, you spill fossil fuel, right? So we are de-risking that. When hydrogen leaks, it goes up. It's light, right? It goes up into the air. So it's not damaging to the environment, which I think is one of the other great ads, which makes it so important for the maritime and ground, right? In ground transportation, so forth. Let me push on to the next one. I mentioned that there's a number of different sources that get to that process of making the hydrogen, right? It could be a deep well geothermal. It could be small modular reactors we talked about. I know NREL's been looking at Marianas and looking at the nuclear energy for you guys. There's been some studies on that. We've got nuclear projects here in Virginia, and those nuclear is a great way to make hydrogen from seawater specifically.
Yeah.
And then you've got things like waste to energy, obviously solar, wind, wave power, all of those renewable energy sources can be ways to generate hydrogen.
Right.
These are the size of the markets that we're looking at. And this is that coastal market, moving people to and from, in and around the Marianas, for instance, or up and down the Chesapeake Bay. And then we've got that moving hydrogen transportation, moving the hydrogen, right? Like we're looking at, we could make hydrogen and move it and transport it to customers that need it, or they could come to our fueling stations themselves. You've got that recreational boat market, right? You've got folks that just go cruising out in the between the islands on their own, luxury travel.
Right.
And then you've got that tremendous logistics market that
Yes.
moving cargo back and forth. I think of things like seafood, right? Which you catch it, you want to keep it fresh. So looking at fishermen and so forth. And you're also, with the wing and ground and the hydrofoil, you're not having a lot of bow in the water that's impacting maritime life, because you're only taking off and landing. So really a huge market globally.
Greg, that was great overview of the ecosystem. Pretty amazing. Now, we have a very special guest with us right now, and I really would like to hand it over to you so you can introduce our special guest.
Hey, thanks, Rob. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about Sea Cheetah, and we do have the privilege of having our CEO Serge Markoff with us. I met Serge about a year ago at a AUVSI, Association for Uncrewed Vehicle Systems International. We had a hydrogen day, and we had several hydrogen providers and companies that are working on hydrogen solutions. And I connected with Serge probably a couple of days before that. And I said, Serge, would you like to come up to this event and present? And he said, yes. And so he came up, we started talking. He really, saw, like, my understanding of, military logistics and logistics in general. And we really hit it off. And as I said, I really like seaplanes already, and I was already very excited about hydrogen. So to find a company that was working on both, I was like, yes, I would love to be involved with Sea Cheetah. And so happy to introduce the Sea Cheetah CEO. He has spoken at several other events. He spoke at the Monaco was invited to speak at the Monaco Hydrogen Expo earlier or last year. So he's presented there and presented at a number of other events. So over to you, Serge.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for having me, for inviting me, and it's an honor for me to present to both of you and to the audience. Sea Cheetah, and I want to thank Greg for the excellent presentation. Sea Cheetah is a 3-year-old company, but we have achieved a lot in terms of becoming a circular, vertically integrated, world's first hydrogen fleet and sustainable fuel generation company. We promote a decentralized approach of sustainable hydrogen fuel, giving ability to the clients and partners, whether it's governments or private companies, generate fuel for our own vessels on site. So it's totally
Yes.
off-grid. It uses solar or line power. If it's solar, it's completely green. And it's especially valuable in the island and coastal environments where fossil fuels have to face logistical issue, definitely have higher cost, and basically create a direct roadmap for communities, whether it's business or residential, government, or local, a roadmap to 100% zero emission ecosystem. We think
Yes.
that Guam is on top of our priorities in terms of developing this, and from Guam to other parts of Micronesia and your part of the world. We'll be thrilled to happy to answer any of the questions and extend and elaborate further about what we represent or what opportunities we both bring to the tables and also are seeking.
So I tell you, gentlemen, I'm so excited to hear about what you're doing. But what I'm even more excited about is the level of thinking. So I guess the first question I have for both of you all, it sounds like you all set out to really address two problem sets. One problem set was about a more efficient mass transit um, opportunity or capability in island and coastal regions? And two, how do you do that in a green friendly, sustainable way that kind of moves away from um, fossil fuels? Am I correct in that? Is that kind of the original problem set, the mass transportation situation?
Greg, if I may jump in here, we evolved as a company. Initially, we designed, uh, engineered, and launched as a single product company, which is pretty revolutionary wing ground effect vessel, to which we brought a hydrogen propulsion, which was never done before over the mid 20th century when the ground effect vessels were start to built and developed. But not then, not now, as of today, there are no other company in the world that introduces hydrogen as a fuel to maritime vessels for all of its fleets, let alone to the, very futuristic, though being built by us today, ground effect. We evolved into a fleet of vessels, Sea Cheetah wing ground effect 2 years away from today, the first vessels to be delivered. We have first orders in a couple of $100 million already. But we also developed and built in partnership with Australian company and its partners hydrofoil vessels, also powered by hydrogen. And to all of our vessels, this count 6 today, and I'll be happy to elaborate more if I have time or late at a later stage. We bring hydrogen fueling on site, which makes it unique. So what also happened is that initially it was intended for ultra wealthy markets, for ultra high net worth markets, but we expanded our business model, and through a public-private partnership model today, we're able to service, approach, and extend the value of our on-site hydrogen generation and fuel and vessels to public transportation in the coastal and island community through a public-private partnership. So whoever operates maritime transportation within Guam or in the broader region, in a particular island or country, is able to team up with us through a public-private partnership where we would bring vessels and fueling infrastructure distributed along the coast or through different islands in a matter of months.
A matter of months scale up
A
time.
matter of months. We're talking about, I would say, 1 year from now, if we were to pursue an opportunity in Guam, with the proper financing, with a proper partner, with a proper government relationship, a local authorities relationship, we can be up and running 12 months from now.
With a kind of a baseline ballpark investment of about how much would be able to get, how much capital needed to get it off the ground?
It's a double-edged sword what we offer, but in any business there is a capital expenditures, upfront capital expenditures, and there are operating expenditures, right? OpEx, CapEx, and OpEx. We'll live and die by this because we are former financial professionals and entrepreneurs, so we know what the numbers stand for and where the value is. Our vessels are not cheap on the outset, but they operate on a 75 to 80% EBITDA net profit margin. So they're approximately 10 times more profitable / 10 times lower operating cost than fossil fuel vessels. So
Because
right.
I was just going to say, because you're attacking the life cycle cost problem set rather than trying to make the upfront cost cheaper. What you're trying to do is make sure the operating cost so that the whole life cycle cost of the solution would be lower and more efficient.
Right. It's actually what you're talking about, and I'm just elaborating on it, is the total cost of ownership.
Yes.
The total cost of ownership is times lower, while the lifespan of the vessels are way longer than the traditional fossil fuels. Anything that runs on gasoline or petrol or gas. So we also have a leasing program in place in the order of several $100 million for qualified customers. So the capital, our boats are in the millions of dollars, right? It's not $100,000 to $100 vessels. But because we have a leasing program in place, we're only talking about down payment. And depending on the vessel, this down payment, again, for qualified customers, of course, if it's a government, it's a totally different story. We already have a letter of intent for 50 of our vessels. We now with one of the island nations, which we are launching into PPP, so already have this model developed. So,
yes.
But we're talking into a couple of $100,000 down payment for the vessel on the lower side, yeah.
Right.
And we also provide leasing option for the hydrogen hub. So basically, with an insignificant amount of down payment, you're getting vessel. The lifespan of our vessel about 40 years because they all built of carbon fiber.
Right.
Carbon fiber is way more better on water than even fiberglass, so of course not to mention other materials. And they're also having a hydrogen supply on site. We also have an option where you don't pay anything for the hydrogen fueling stations if you commit to a multi-year offtake. So we will put the hydrogen fueling station at our own cost, and the partner customer or the government will just commit to a long-term offtake contract, like they do offtake contracts all over the world in fossil fuels, in energy, etc.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so basically, we're talking about very attractive purchase or lease terms. We also open to joint operating agreement. We're also looking to create a training academy for our vessels, and we are open where to create this training academy in. The command center that you saw
Yes.
can be located anywhere, and we want to be close to our customers, close to the market. And frankly, Guam is the first U.S. territory that we're talking to in the Pacific, and altogether in the whole Pacific, South Pacific, this is opportunity for us. And we are thankful to you for that to introduce our solution. So I don't see any reason why Guam cannot be the first pilot project or a base for future expansion as in Micronesia, in the South Pacific altogether. I also want to say that we are working and open to cooperating on the defense and government opportunities. So this
Uh-huh.
potentially could lead to engagement with former colleagues of Greg in your part of the world or worldwide. It's in the works.
Yeah, lots of opportunities here, and I think there's a great use case here in Guam and throughout Micronesia. So I'm really excited about that. Now I kind of want to nerd out here, right? A little bit. I want to kind of get into some of the technology that you all are using. So let's start with the wing and ground effect. Can you kind of give kind of a layman's version about what that technology is and where it came from and how long has it been around?
Greg, you want to take a crack on it?
Sure. So wing and ground, actually anytime you've taken off or landed in an aircraft, you feel that, right? When you're over the runway and it kind of you kind of level off, right? There's a that is ground effect. And it's
Yes.
so I actually talked with an F-14 Tomcat pilot one time who came off an aircraft carrier, and he had only one engine, and wing and ground effect saved him. So he was able to kind of cruise along across the top of the ocean in wing and ground effect. But there's basically a bubble of air that gives you some efficiencies flying, as opposed to when you take off and pop up to altitude, right? The jet stream is where folks get their efficiencies, the big aircraft companies.
Right.
But there are efficiencies that take place at just above, like within a wingspan of the water. And so flying it, so you've seen like the Spruce Goose, there was the Ercano plane that the Soviet Union built that was on the Black Sea. Just big engines that pushed it right across the water, but it came out of the water, and then it zipped across. One of the challenges that had with those early flights, the Spruce Scoots and so forth, is that the pilot had to manage all those fine maneuvers to because it's fairly dynamic place. So that the technology that Sea Cheetah has worked on is using that AI and using being able to fly smartly to respond to those changes, right? Because we're going to be going over, there's going to be waves below us,
Absolutely.
and the temperatures change and so forth. And so that could be, so that's why we need, and so the pilots would actually have to get tired out after an hour. So we really need that robot brain that's sensing those changes and making and allowing us to sustain in in that dynamic environment, because we really are flying. We're a boat that flies. So it's not as simple as being a captain of a boat that drives on the surface, but you are getting you're not having that wave bump that you have because you're flying above the surface of the water. But I think maybe
You went
Serge.
exactly where I wanted you to go with that
Okay.
explanation and the backstory with the spruce goose. A lot of manual input, tiring out the operator and stuff. But now, because of advanced technology, AI, sensors, and stuff
Digital
like
flight
that,
controls. Yep.
yeah, all of that can kind of be done in that computational kind of inputs to keep the the vessel moving forward without a whole bunch of manual inputs is now upon us, and that's what makes it possible now and more practical.
Yep.
May
And also say the engine has just tremendous power that pushes us forward, right? As opposed to the prop engines and so forth. So you'll be getting a lot of mist and salt air on those engines. So you think of like the spruce goose, right?
Yeah,
Sucking in that salt air. So if you're flying right above it, but our engines are going to be, backward facing. And
in
so
the
that,
back.
yeah. So I don't
Yeah.
know, Serge probably can definitely talk more
yeah.
in the
One
technical.
one thing that I want to mention is that we are fueled by hydrogen. It's a gaseous hydrogen that is in the pontoons. The pontoons are in the tanks. And it's a catamaran winging around of the vessel. Um, what makes us unique is very powerful motors as well, propulsion system. So the motors are electric, but they're powered not by battery, like one of our leading competitors, which has 1/3 of our range. We are powered by hydrogen, and through fuel cells and the chemical reaction that occurs in fuel cells, it produces the
Mm.
electricity that powers the electric motors, right? So it's electric motors that have 10 times lifespan versus gasoline motors. In terms, the propulsion system is hydrogen electric hybrid. We're powered by hydrogen fuel that is stored in the pontoons, in the tanks that are located in the pontoons, but the motors are electric. It's very powerful electric motors. The maintenance on electric motor is 10 times that of internal combustion engine, which of course changes all the dynamics of the lifespan and the maintenance. That's very important to understand, to realize. The other thing I want to come back with is the training. We just finished the training simulator for the wing ground effect vessel, which allows already to be trained of how this vessel is going to be operated. We completed it in just 6 months at a fraction of the cost that it would have taken of a similar simulator of an airplane. So we are talking about 6 to 8 month training course to operate the vessel. And the operator will have a captain's license, not a pilot license, which of course much easier to get and absolutely much cheaper. And we provide the training with the aircraft,
I'm
with
assuming when you
the
say,
aircraft, with the wing and ground effect craft.
and when I hear you say simulator, I'm assuming it's like a level 4 certified full motion kind of simulator.
It's because it's a very unique craft, and it's a boat. It's not a plane.
Hmm.
It will have much lower threshold to be approved and certified for the maritime authorities.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not, the most capable operators of our vessel, you will not believe it, will not be pilots, will not be captains, but they'll be gamers.
Mm,
Because
interesting.
the vessel is operated with a joystick.
Mm,
Some of the planes are operated with a joystick now.
yep.
Airbus versus Boeing, for example. Boeing uses
Yep.
traditional yoke, but Airbus is operated with a joystick, as many planes. So this as well is operating with a joystick. One very important thing I want to mention, we carry a great deal about safety and security of the vessels. So what we are doing is that we will have a control center on shore with a second captain on shore that will have the same controls and the same visuals through sensors and cameras as the captain on the vessel itself. So,
Mm, so remote virtual kind of
right.
operations. Yeah.
So we just completed the simulator. Greg, this is just in. We just completed a simulator that you can operate wing ground vessel as a second pilot or as a third, or even a regulator will give access to the Coast Guard. It can be controlled through half of across the world. So we created
Yes.
this redundancy in terms of operations and safety. So it's not remotely controlled. There's always captain inside, but the functionality and controls are identical for the captain person operating it on board and a second captain, second person operating this on shore. So in case something, God forbid, goes wrong with a person on shore, the vessels can be lowered, turned around, and operated fully remotely through a remote captain, remote operator.
Yeah. So that's great to hear about all of the safety redundancy and stuff built in to help support operations. Let's talk a little bit more about that safety thing when it has to do with hydrogen. There's some people who might be kind of scared or nervous or anxious when they hear hydrogen as the fuel source and concerned about the flammability and the storage and the handling of hydrogen and stuff. What would you speak to those kind of concerns about hydrogen as a fuel source?
Hydrogen has this legacy reputation of 100 years ago, where there was this major accident
Yeah.
with a blimp. Uh, there are different theories around that accident, including it was a provocation. It was a staged event, and the thing that was actually burning and exploded was the paint. Not too many people know about it, but it's been established. We utilize the best of the best hydrogen storage technology. Toyota, which is one of the pioneers in the hydrogen storage and actually hydrogen propulsion in cars, has been selling for 10 years Toyota Mirai with hydrogen tanks inside that never had any accident. The difference of hydrogen tanks, they are carbon fiber steel tanks that compress hydrogen at 700 bar. So God forbid there is the hit or some kind of accident with these tanks. Another boat comes in or some malevolent, staged event, including a deliberate somebody barging into the boat, right? Uh, the hydrogen carbon fibers hydrogen tank will sustain much greater impact than anything that's out there because they are very solid. So, for example, if you have an accident and the gas tank explodes, or a diesel or anything else, that will provide an explosion. Any kind of rupture of a hydrogen tank, first of all, it's almost impossible because it's carbon steel tank and it holds gas at 700 bar. So it's much more solid, much more reliable.
Yes.
But the other thing that not too many people know, that hydrogen is the lightest of gases. So if there is a hole in some kind of tank of hydrogen, it will evaporate up. It will not, go down. It will go up in the air and evaporate in a matter of seconds. And there is basically what hydrogen is. It's a mixture of air and water. This is it. There's nothing inside. So it's when some of the hydrogen cars that appear now on the road, the only thing that comes out of this is vapor. That's it. So it's basically air. So this is
That was
what
great.
the construction of the tanks itself are probably the most solid construction of any tanks in the transportation. And the other thing, the nature of hydrogen itself is the lightest of gases.
Yeah, that was a great explanation and talking to some of the safety concerns that are out there with hydrogen. So I think this is a great concept and opportunity for Guam and Micronesia. I'd like to know maybe who you might be talking to already in key positions in Guam or Micronesia, and what's really your ask at this point? What would you need in order to make this thing kind of go to the next level?
I would leave it up to Greg, your thoughts, Greg, and ideas, because Greg leads both defense and government business development and relations. And also, Greg is a global head of logistics worldwide for the company as a product, because we're pretty much universal as to what function and what our boats can perform. It could be carrying fish, it could be transporting cargo, it could be transporting troops, passengers, it could be a ferry function, it could be a government, transportation, it could be Coast Guard. There are multiple applications. But as for what we're looking for, and again, Greg, you can comment whom specifically you are thinking of contacting. Our goal is basically engage with the Guam-based or Micronesia transportation company. It could be airlines, it could be passenger ferry operators. It absolutely can be hospitality players, hotels. It as well might be government and state government transportation divisions of the local transportation authorities or transportation authorities proper. We also would like to invite to engage together with the transportation players in transportation and hospitality, those who are seeking to diversify power generation into sustainable zero emission power. Because our hydrogen hub, if you take 100% of what can produce, it can produce hydrogen for our vessels and for, let's say, any other vessels that will come later on. But it can also co-generate electricity. And this is very important in whatever proportion. And what we can aim to do is that all those, I don't know if your audience is aware that there are hydrogen powered generators coming into the market, which eventually would replace all diesel generators, all of them.
Mm,
So where do you get hydrogen to power these diesel generators? At our hub.
right.
So we can have anybody who uses, whether a small business, a government organization, as a hospitality, a hotel that uses diesel generators, we'll invite to team up with us and develop a hydrogen power infrastructure, which we do in a decentralized manner. So a 20-foot container or a 40-foot container or a smaller installation will allow you to get rid of fossil fuel, will allow you to get rid of diesel.
Yeah.
And we can lease all of this equipment. We don't necessarily have to make a large capital investment upfront. So this is the what we would be seeking for. And Greg, you can talk specifically whom you're thinking we can approach in Guam and Micronesia broader.
No, I think you need it like in general. I mean, I would love to see Rob Jackson buy one, and Innovate Guam. I don't know if you got that. we could work something out. But yeah, I know there's a ferry company. I would look to approach them that moves between the islands, just to see what they're thinking. I'm actually here in Norfolk right now at a Navy Marine Corps contracting event, procurement event, and was
Yeah.
talking about the idea of transportation between bases. When I was stationed at Okinawa, we had buses that would take us in between the bases. So I think,
Right.
like looking at that government customer, whether it's the Navy or the Army, to move people from, and I think there's a significant amount of traffic between Guam and Tinian. I know the Tinian bases, they've been doing a lot of rebuilding there, and then you've got Rota, Saipan. So I think that would be a great use case. I would need to look at the distances between Guam and the other parts of Micronesia, Peleliu and so forth, but or Palau, but being able to have some sort of intra-theater lift. But yeah, those coastal companies, I remember seeing Guam had a couple seaplanes. It would be neat to connect with those operators because those are aircraft, they have restrictions as to where they can fly, whereas we're in that maritime space. And so we can kind of be that. I was actually talking with a float plane company here in the Chesapeake Bay, right? He can't necessarily fly into DC because it's Washington, DC. But boy, he could land south on the Potomac River or someplace like that. And then, Sea Cheetah could pick up the rest of the leg. And so you could imagine that
Yeah.
with, partnering with like a seaplane company or an airline company that's looking at, for the folks that fly into Guam, and they're looking to go to another island or another part of the island. Well, hey, we can bring you down to the water, put you on a Sea Cheetah or a Sea Biscuit, and now you can go out to a hotel, to one of the outer islands, smaller islands. You think of like places like Indonesia, where my brother lives, like being able to connect people and move people back and forth. And then you've got the whole freight market, which I think is great. Folks being able to move food, grocery stores, right? UPS, FedEx. I think those would be great customers, right? Hey, you've got that cargo coming in from the US, whether that's on a ship or a plane, but now we've got to get it out, across to another island, right? Put it on the back of one of ours. And we also have barges. We didn't really talk to that, but we're building these hydrogen powered barges, where you can put 20-foot equivalent units, TEUs, or 40-foot equivalent units. And now you can just ship that, whether that's up an inland waterway or across to another island. So now you can move heavy cargo, not just small cargo inside the platforms themselves, but moving bulk cargo to from the island. So that would be great for
Yeah.
groceries, moving anything, moving vehicles, and so forth on those barges.
Yeah, Greg, I think there's a great use case for the freight piece of this. And I think there's a great opportunity maybe for a conceptual um, uh, partnership between multiple different entities, piggybacking on like a craft or MARAD kind of strategy. So like um, the federal government or Indo-PACOM or JTF Micronesia making an investment in this because they want access to this kind of capability during combat or contingency kind of scenario. So it's a dual use kind of entity up front, but then maybe the government of Guam and maybe some commercial entities here on Guam and Micronesia buy into it because they see the commercial peacetime steady state kind of opportunities there. And now everybody kind of comes to the table. You have a dual use kind of capability where it's written into like Indo-PACOM or JTF Micronesia O plans that they're going to tap these things when it comes to contingency kind of scenario. But when it's not contingency, it's doing this commercial stuff. on a more efficient basis. And that might be a way to share the cost and bring more entities to the table.
Yeah, now you're showing your Air Force logistics chops right now, which I know we've talked about this, right? The craft, Civil Reserve Air Fleet, and then
Yep,
the VISA, the Voluntary Intermodal Sea Lift Agreement, that's
yep,
under MARAD or Department of Transportation, I think. But yeah, where you basically I hate to say public-private partnership, but between the airlines and the Defense Department. And that's how we flew people over to the desert, was on United
right.
Airlines. I mean, when I flew out of Afghanistan, the majority of my flight was on a Atlas Air, and then we picked up a C-17 and flew in Afghanistan. But the majority of that leg, and we had commercial aircraft that are coming in and out. But yeah, that's a perfect idea. And the other one is I was thinking about Operation Christmas Drop, right? So where
Yeah,
we
Christmas
we
drop. Yeah,
fly over and
Ooh.
deliver toys and kick them out of
yeah,
the back. Well, now we could just, instead of dropping them on people, we could deliver them to the beach, right? So we're also looking
yes.
at being able to be able to come up on a beach with these and open and have a ramp where vehicles and passengers can come off, to deliver that. So maybe we'll have Santa Claus in a Sea Cheetah one of these days, running around the Pacific. But no, that's a great point on the craft visa programs. Yeah,
Yeah,
having that partnership.
yeah. So this has been a really great conversation. I could be here for hours geeking out with you all and asking about this. It's just amazing that this technology is here. It's not just science fiction. It is here today, and we can make the best use out of it. And that makes me really, really excited. Thank you for being here, Serge. Thank you for also calling in and bringing your wisdom and your vision. Thank you for bringing a product like this to market. And I think we have opportunity for follow up conversations later on as this thing evolves, because I think it does provide a solution or a capability that would be needed out here. So thank you so much for being a guest on the Innovate Guam podcast and sharing this vision and this incredible technology with us. For my audience, I hope you all learned something as well today. Watch for my podcast dropping weekly at the beginning of every week. Follow me on all social media platforms, including Substack. Don't forget to follow and like and subscribe on all of my content. And read my Innovate column at guampdn.com, first and third Fridays of each month. See you next time, and remember, no matter whether at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you.